Has anyone ever called you resilient? It basically means that you can bounce back when life absolutely wrecks you. But there's a lot more to it than that, isn't there? Because just simply being able to endure a lot of pain and suffering isn't going to make you a better person. Like, you need to be able to grow from and learn from the negative experiences that you're having. And you can definitely learn and grow negatively from enduring suffering and pain and all this bad experience of life, you know? Like, is somebody who bounces back from like violence and abuse, and they're deciding like, the way that I deal with this is I just be big and scary and angrier and like more violent than everybody else, is that person resilient? Like, or are we talking about something else? Like, in some circles that might be resilience. Like, you know, if you're hanging around a bunch of people who have been through a lot of violence and trauma, and that's how you grew up in that community, like the biggest, scariest dude, that might be the face of resilience. So it changes depending on the context, doesn't it? But I think the key to it really, it isn't about being able to endure the most pain and suffering or being able to bounce back when life absolutely wrecks you. I think it's being resourceful, like being able to see what took place. Like, why did everything fall apart? Why did everything end up so negative? And how can I avoid that in the future? Or how can I produce a more positive result in the future? So that's a big question worth asking though. And the reason why I bring up resourcefulness is because it's so often forgotten. Like, it's just, we want to build resilience. We want people to be able to endure the suffering that is inevitable in their lives when it doesn't necessarily need to be inevitable. Like, I know generally if you've been through one particular kind of trauma, that tends to reproduce itself throughout your life. I get that. But why aren't we looking at changing it? Why are we just looking at resilience as a measure of like how much somebody can endure? Like, how, because it's not all about endurance. Endurance isn't a long-term strategy. Endurance isn't going to work. That leads to burnout. You can't just build resilience by, you know, being exposed to traumatic material. And that's also, this isn't just for people that are like participants or clients or patients in the system. This is also for the workers, the nurses, the support workers, even the doctors, and, you know, the most advanced practitioners that are working in the community. Like, it's the same story wherever you are, whether you're a consumer of the services or you're a provider of the services. When we talk about resilience, we talk about being able to endure suffering and being able to endure like being exposed to traumatic material, like all the most like graphic and obscene things that you can imagine, like, are a part of people's everyday experience. So that's sort of, I just feel like it gets lost in the conversation. Like, this word resilience comes up, and it's this important thing, and we sit around and people have meetings about it, and you get in your trainings and your inductions, and when you're talking to people that are involved in the care of people that you're providing care for, like mothers and fathers and you know, anybody who's involved, it's all this stuff about resilience, but it's one of those words that seems to have lost all meaning. Like, so many of the words and so many of the phrases in mental health and even wider health, it's like, I think it's part of the, you know, the like the academic sort of, like, how everything becomes like so academic, and it's all about using the big words and complex structures and models, and like this idea that like we're building and developing this understanding of systems and everything, but it just becomes noise at the end of the day because nobody's actually remembering like the fundamentals and the basics. Like, and it really starts to broadcast the wrong message, because people are just hearing over and over this message of resilience, and like, you're growing stronger because you've survived so much, and like, now you're going to be able to endure more in the future. But there's no talk about like the resourcefulness that's required to make changes so that we can experience reality differently. Like, even if like you can't change the objective fact that if you're going into work and you work in a trauma unit that you're going to be exposed to that every day, like, we can talk about resourcefulness in the way that like we can manage our exposure to that, and we can manage the way that we interact with that, so that we're not taking on all of the stuff that's taking place with the people that we're interacting with, whether you're a consumer or a provider. Like, everybody's just in this big soup of pain and suffering in the mental health world. That's what I've kind of see. It's a bit like revealing, isn't it? I guess that's why it's coming up for me, because I don't want to be a part of that soup, that suffering. Like, just, I don't want to be in this mess of just like, where that's the message, like, we've got to just suck it up and deal with it, and this is just the way that things are, and the way to move forward with your life is understand that you're building resilience and you can endure it. Like, I don't subscribe to that. I want to make changes to things. So what's actually taking place inside of me right now is I feel like I've just revealed a lot more about myself than about the subject matter, and like what I'm actually experiencing myself. But that's what this is. And for a moment there, I kind of forgot about it. So this is my video diary. It's never intended to be advice or guidance. I'm just expressing what I'm thinking and feeling in the present moment. And as I'm looking at the system that I work within, this is what's highlighted to me. But at the same time, part two is a lot of people are charging into this system, and they're desperate to make changes. They're desperate to have an impact. They want to find new ways to help people, and they're very motivated people, very inspired people. But at the end of the day, we don't need to change anybody else's reality. It's all about like our own experience. So what I'm currently doing is I'm just focusing on understanding people, just observing and understanding people, and allowing them to express how they experience reality, and not like, I have no desire to change what anybody else is doing or how they're interacting or like how they're dealing with their suffering. I just want to observe and understand. But while I've been doing that, what is glaringly obvious is that resourcefulness is being forgotten which is really what you're talking about when you're talking about resilience. Like, it's a major component to being able to bounce back when life wrecks you. Like, you need to be resourceful. You need to be able to rebuild, and you need to be able to rebuild it better. Like, you need to be able to create something more sustainable, and you need to learn from the mistakes of the past instead of repeating them. But like, without putting that expectation or pressure on anybody else to do that, we can only really look at ourselves and how we're failing to be more resourceful. And the way that I'm failing to be resourceful is I get scared of taking the next step in my career or in my approach. Like, there are things that I need to experience that I just have no idea what it's going to be like. So I'm staying in a familiar, safe place, and that's where you're just repeating the same lessons over and over again instead of actually trusting yourself. I suppose that's what I really think is missing, is like It's not that you're not resourceful, it's not that you're not resilient, it's that you don't trust yourself to build that resourcefulness and resilience by embarking on the next steps. So I'm talking to myself, like, I don't trust myself to be resourceful as I move into the unknown. Like, I want to see things, I want to observe things, I want to understand things, I want to experience things without making a total mess of my own mental health. Like, and I know I can do it. I know I have tools to manage and even make permanent changes to my own issues. So, like, what's the big hold up? What's stopping me from just going into the unknown? I suppose a part of it is there's balance here, because on the one hand I'm like, just go for it, just go into the unknown and learn your lessons, and then another wiser part of me says, like, yeah, you're going at the exact pace that you need to be going at, because one thing that's not intelligent is just diving into the unknown so dramatically that you don't have time to be resourceful. Like, if I slowly move towards the unknown, I can see things on the horizon that are coming towards me, new challenges and new things that I need to figure out, and I can move slowly towards that and have time to be resourceful and build solutions to what I'm encountering as it's coming towards me. But if I'm just sprinting in there thinking like I'm going to be the one to change the world and like change the system and like help all these people, and like, so, you know, just go in there guns blazing, that kind of picture, then I could just run straight into a disaster, and then there's just disaster in all directions, and it doesn't matter how resourceful I am or how much I trust myself, I won't be able to resolve all of those issues. So now what's coming up for me is I need to be patient. I need to be patient and acknowledge that I'm frustrated, that one of the like most popular messages that's out there right now is all about building resilience, which is basically how I've defined it here, being able to bounce back when life wrecks you, like when everything goes wrong. Like, that can't be what it's all about. Like, we don't want to necessarily have to develop thicker skin and more armor and, you know, be like so strong. Like, we want to build, we want to develop ourselves, but we want to do it on our own terms. We want to have the space and the freedom to create meaningful challenges for ourselves. Not this survival mode version of reality where you've got to be strong or you're screwed. Like, that's not living, that's surviving. And I guess because I was in that place for such a large portion of my life so far, that survival kind of thing, where that was the compliment that was always given to me, is like, you're resilient, like you can take it. Like, even the violence factor, like I was known for being able to take a physical hit, you know, like without, you know, reacting to it or appearing to take any damage. Like, I was just, it was all about like how much I could take. And what comes to mind is that Rocky Balboa clip where he's like, life is gonna beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. It's not about how hard you hit, it's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward, how much you can take and keep moving forward. And that used to be like my fucking, in my earphones while I'm working out in the gym, like with some like inspirational soundtrack behind it. Like, I've probably listened to that like 1,000 times in this lifetime. That used to be me. And the David Goggins stuff, like, just David Goggins is this guy, if you haven't heard of him, you probably have, where he's just like, he's so extreme and he's so into his discipline, and just like, he like ran 100 miles like race or something non-stop, and like broke his bones in his feet or something and just taped him up and kept running. Like that endurance mindset, like that's like the out of balance version of resilience, you know, like, or the out of balance version of like being strong enough to endure life. Like it's just another thing I'm realizing that I don't want to take with me into my own future. Like I don't want to be all about that life. I want to be like, okay, cool, like I know I can take a hit, I know I can bounce back when life wrecks me. I've proven it to myself enough times now, universe, like I'm good. I'm going to focus now on being resourceful so that I don't have to go and repeat that lesson again and again. Like I want to be learning from those mistakes, thinking back to the past, like what went wrong, how can I do it better, how can I do it differently, and how can I support others to have the same kind of awakening and see that they're also stuck in patterns where they're repeating the same lesson and they already have all the answers from the lesson last time and the million times before that they've been repeating it. Like, but also be like kind of an example. Like in this moment, I'm kind of trying to articulate and express what I'm acknowledging within myself, and that is like, I thought I had to be tough. That's really like, simplify the whole video, cut the whole start of it off and just post this. I thought I had to be tough, and I thought life was all about enduring shit, and I was encouraged for it, and I was patted on the back and congratulated for it, and everybody thought I was the fucking man because I could take a hit, and my ego loved that, and I loved that, and I felt really good about myself because I could endure. And I think you even kind of then invite life to kick your ass more because it feeds that like, yeah, I'm the fucking man thing. And I just don't want to do that. I just don't want to. And like, yeah, so I'm reacting to everything in the world, and especially in my work situation and my career, that is a reflection of that encouragement for people to be able to endure a lot. And that's where they get their sense of like, yeah, I'm something, like I'm enough, I matter, I'm important, or whatever it is, because I'm strong. Like, you can keep it if you want. Sometimes you need something, you know. Earlier in my life, maybe I needed to have that, you know. That was me. That was enough to keep me like feeling good enough to put one foot in front of the other and continue my quest. But I'm letting it go now. And if somebody else is watching this and they're having some realizations right now, that's awesome. Click the like button for me. Leave your comments down below. I'd love to hear what you're thinking and feeling, what this brought up for you. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And you can always check out my website, kylives.com.